fall asleep to the secret experiments of Project MKUltra, where human testing went catastrophically wrong. For nearly 2 decades, ordinary American citizens were transformed into unwitting lab rats by their own government, subjected to mind-altering drugs and psychological torture without their knowledge or consent. Tonight, we pull back the curtain on the CIA's classified mind control program that crossed every ethical boundary in the name of national security. What you are about to hear isn't science fiction, it's documented history. And the most terrifying part? We may never know how deep the rabbit hole truly goes in the frigid depths of the Cold War. A new kind of battlefield emerged that couldn't be seen with the naked eye. While nuclear missiles stood ready on both sides of the Iron Curtain, intelligence agencies waged a silent war for control of the ultimate weapon, the human mind. The stakes couldn't have been higher. The superpowers competed not just for military dominance, but for psychological superiority that could reshape the very fabric of global politics. The early 1950s marked a period of unprecedented anxiety in American intelligence circles. Disturbing reports from Korea described American POWs returning home, seemingly brainwashed, spouting communist propaganda and denouncing their own country. These alarming cases suggested techniques far beyond conventional interrogation. Something more insidious was at play, something that challenged fundamental assumptions about human autonomy and free will. What the CIA discovered about Soviet mind control techniques terrified them to their core. Reports suggested that communist bloc scientists had made breakthrough advances in psychological manipulation, potentially creating methods to extract confessions, implant false memories, and even program human behavior. The possibility that Soviet agents could create sleeper operatives or break the will of captured American personnel sent shockwaves through Langley. Intelligence analysts pored over every fragment of information, constructing nightmare scenarios of American officials compromised by invisible psychological weapons. In April 1953, faced with this perceived existential threat, CIA Director Alan Dulles authorized a top-secret program, codenamed MKUltra. Its mission was simple yet profound: develop mind control techniques that would give America the edge in the psychological warfare arena. No expense would be spared, no method would be considered too extreme, no ethical boundary would remain uncrossed if it meant securing America's position against the Soviet threat. The program operated under the principle that national security justified any means necessary, a dangerous proposition that would soon spiral beyond anyone's control. But the man they chose to lead this program would prove far more dangerous than anyone could have imagined. Dr. Sidney Gottlieb, a chemist with a background in poison development, brought a cold, clinical approach to the manipulation of human consciousness. Brilliant but morally detached, Gottlieb viewed the human mind as simply another system to be hacked, another code to be broken. His appointment would set in motion a chain of events that would leave hundreds of lives shattered and raise profound questions about the limits of government power in a democratic society. As MKUltra took shape in secret facilities across America, its architects had no idea they were creating a monster that would eventually escape their control, leaving a legacy of trauma, paranoia, and broken lives that continues to haunt us to this day. In the shadowy laboratories of MKUltra, Dr. Sidney Gottlieb and his team of scientists embarked on what they called the Chemical Crusade, a systematic exploration of substances that could potentially unlock, manipulate, and control the human mind. Chief among these was lysergic acid diethylamidelster, compound so powerful that doses measured in micrograms could completely transform human consciousness. The quest for the perfect mind control agent had begun, driven by Cold War paranoia and the relentless pursuit of psychological dominance. The CIA's fascination with LSD began almost immediately after its discovery. It was a substance that seemed to dissolve the boundaries of normal perception, rendering subjects highly suggestible and potentially vulnerable to programming. Initial experiments were conducted on willing volunteers, mostly CIA employees, who had no idea what they were signing up for. The results were both fascinating and disturbing. The agency's internal memos from this period reveal a mixture of scientific curiosity and strategic calculation, viewing human consciousness as simply another battlefield to be conquered. It was like someone had rewired my entire brain, recalled one anonymous agent years later. Everything I thought I knew about myself, about reality itself, suddenly seemed like an arbitrary construction. If they had told me I was someone else during that experience, I might have believed them. This vulnerability, this plasticity of identity, under the influence of chemical compounds, represented exactly the kind of breakthrough Gottlieb and his superiors had been hoping for. This malleable state of consciousness was exactly what Gottlieb had been searching for. If LSD could dissolve a person's sense of self so completely, could it not also be used to rebuild that self according to external specifications? Could it break down resistance to interrogation? Could it implant new loyalties, new memories, new identities? The possibilities seemed limitless to those who viewed the human mind merely as a complex system waiting to be hacked. But laboratory experiments with willing subjects could only reveal so much. To truly understand the potential of these substances, Gottlieb argued, they needed to be tested on unwitting subjects in real-world conditions. And so began one of the most ethically reprehensible chapters in American intelligence history. The program expanded rapidly, with tentacles reaching into dozens of institutions across the country, all operating under elaborate cover stories and layers of deniability. Across the United States, MKUltra operatives established front organizations, fake research foundations, clinics, even brothels where everyday citizens were dosed with mind-altering substances without their knowledge or consent. College students, psychiatric patients, prisoners, sex workers, and military personnel all became unwitting test subjects in this grand and terrible experiment. The program operated with virtually no oversight, its activities hidden even from most elected officials who might have questioned its methods or objectives. In San Francisco, Operation Midnight Climax established CIA-funded brothels where clients were secretly dosed with LSD, while agents observed their reactions from behind one-way mirrors. These safe houses became laboratories for studying how various substances affected people in social and sexual situations. The agents running these operations kept detailed notes on each subject's reactions, though these records would later be destroyed in the program's massive document purge of 1973. In Kentucky's Lexington Narcotics Farm, drug-addicted prisoners were given LSD for 77 consecutive days. The facility, ostensibly a rehabilitation center, became a perfect testing ground where subjects couldn't leave and were unusual. Behavior could be easily monitored and controlled. Many of these prisoners, already vulnerable due to their addictions, experienced profound psychological trauma that persisted long after the experiments ended. At Montreal's Allen Memorial Institute, Dr. Ewan Cameron, funded by MKUltra grants, subjected patients seeking help for minor conditions like anxiety to psychic driving, a combination of powerful drugs, induced comas, and endless looped recordings designed to erase their personalities and rebuild them from scratch. Cameron believed he could erase a person's mind and then rebuild it according to his specifications, creating, in effect, a blank slate that could be reprogrammed. His patients, who had sought treatment for conditions as minor as postpartum depression, instead found themselves subjected to months of experimental procedures that left many permanently damaged. The human toll was devastating. Hundreds suffered psychological breakdowns, many never fully recovered, and some lost their lives. One Army scientist, Dr. Frank Olson, plunged to his death from a hotel window after being unwittingly dosed with LSD at a CIA retriator case that would remain shrouded in mystery and controversy for decades. His family would spend years fighting for recognition of what had happened to him, eventually receiving an apology from President Ford in 1975. Though many questions about his death remain unanswered to this day, the experiments extended beyond LSD to include a pharmacological grab bag of mind-altering substances: mescaline, psilocybin, scopolamine, marijuana, alcohol, and sodium pentothal. Gottlieb's team investigated synthetic compounds that could induce amnesia, heightened suggestibility, paralysis, and other states useful for intelligence work. They explored combinations of drugs, seeking synergistic effects that might prove more powerful than any single substance. No chemical pathway into the human mind was left unexplored. Yet for all this suffering, for all the ethical boundaries shattered, the program produced surprisingly few actionable intelligence breakthroughs. The mind, it seemed, refused to yield its deepest secrets so easily, even to the most powerful chemicals science could provide. Internal reviews of the program repeatedly questioned its efficacy, though these concerns were often brushed aside by those who had staked their careers on its success. The lack of scientific rigor in the experiments were poorly designed and documented further undermined the program's value. But Gottlieb and his team were undeterred. If chemicals alone couldn't achieve their aims, perhaps they needed to combine them with other, even more invasive techniques. The next phase would incorporate emerging technologies like electroshock, sensory deprivation, and hypnosis, creating a multi-pronged assault on human consciousness that would push the boundaries of what was possible and permissible even further. As the 1950s gave way to the 1960s, MK evolved into something even its creators might not have recognized, a sprawling, secretive enterprise that touched countless lives and institutions across America and beyond. By the late 1950s, Dr. Gottlieb and his MK team had reached a sobering conclusion. Chemicals alone, despite their profound effects on consciousness, could not reliably produce the kind of programmable human subjects they had envisioned. LSD and other substances certainly shattered normal perception and lowered psychological defenses, but the results were too unpredictable, too chaotic to harness effectively for intelligence purposes. The search for mind control would need to expand beyond pharmacology into other domains of human psychology. The program's evolution reflected a fundamental shift in thinking from viewing the mind as merely a chemical system to understanding it as a complex interplay of biological, psychological, and social factors that might be manipulated through multiple vectors simultaneously. We need to attack the problem from multiple angles simultaneously, Gottlieb wrote in a classified 1958 memo. The chemical key opens the door, but we need additional methods to direct the subject once that door is open. This new phase of MK would combine drugs with an arsenal of other techniques: sensory deprivation, electroshock therapy, hypnosis, sleep manipulation, and various forms of psychological conditioning. The integration of these methods represented a sophisticated, if deeply troubling, understanding of how human consciousness might be dismantled and reconstructed according to external specifications. The program's researchers became particularly interested in the work of Dr. Donald Ewan Cameron at McGill University, whose psychic driving techniques seemed to offer a blueprint for completely dismantling and rebuilding human personalities. Cameron's approach was brutally straightforward. First, use a combination of intensive electroshock treatments and drug-induced comas to erase existing memory and personality structures, what he called depatterning, then bombard the psychologically blank patient with repetitive messages to implant new patterns of thought and behavior. Cameron, once a respected psychiatrist who had even served as president of the American Psychiatric Association, had become convinced that severe mental illnesses required equally severe interventions, a philosophy that aligned perfectly with MKUltra's objectives. With generous CIA funding through the Society for the Investigation of Human Ecology, a front organization, Cameron conducted experiments on unwitting patients that would today be considered torture. Subjects were kept in drug-induced sleep for weeks, while being forced to listen to repetitive tape loops of simple statements or commands, sometimes playing hundreds of thousands of times. Many suffered permanent damage, losing years of memories and the ability to function in normal society. One patient, Gail Kastner, who had sought treatment for relatively mild anxiety, later recalled, "I didn't know my name. I couldn't remember where I lived. I couldn't remember my family. I didn't know who I was supposed to be. I was a vegetable." The Allen Memorial Institute, where Cameron conducted his CIA-funded research, became a house of horrors for many patients who had entered seeking help for minor conditions. Nurses who worked there later reported their discomfort with the procedures, but the hierarchical nature of medical authority in the 1950s, combined with Cameron's prestigious reputation, silenced most objections. The full extent of the damage would only become clear years later, when former patients began to piece together what had happened to them, and sought legal recourse process hampered by the deliberate destruction of records and the layers of secrecy surrounding the program. Meanwhile, at various black sites and through subcontracted research at universities, MKUltra explored the psychological effects of extreme sensory deprivation, Subjects were placed in isolation tanks or specially designed rooms where they were deprived of all sensory input, no light, sound, or tactile stimulation. The results were profoundly disturbing. Within hours, most subjects began experiencing hallucinations, anxiety, and extreme suggestibility. After 48 hours, many were unable to distinguish between reality and fantasy, becoming highly vulnerable to external influence. Dr. Donald Hebb at McGill University, whose research was partially funded through MKUltra channels, found that prolonged sensory deprivation could produce psychosis-like states more effectively than drugs, with the added benefit of leaving subjects desperate for any form of sensory input or human contact, making them extraordinarily receptive to suggestion. The sensory deprivation studies represent our most promising avenue, noted one internal review. Subjects emerge from the experience with temporarily reduced critical faculties and heightened acceptance of external direction. Combined with chemical enhancement, this state could potentially allow for direct behavioral programming. This research would later inform interrogation techniques used at sites like Guantanamo Bay and Abu Ghraib, demonstrating the long shadow cast by MKUltra over American intelligence practices long after the program's official termination. The program also delved deeply into hypnosis, particularly exploring whether subjects could be programmed to perform actions against their moral code or self-interest while under hypnotic influence. Could a person be hypnotized to carry out an assassination and then have no memory of the event? Could they be given a post-hypnotic trigger that would activate years later? The CIA's interest in creating Manchurian candidate sleeper agents who could be activated by specific triggers drove much of this research. Dr. George Estabrooks, a prominent psychologist with ties to military intelligence, claimed to have successfully created multiple personalities in hypnotic subjects who could be triggered to switch between identities without conscious awareness, a claim that generated significant interest within MKUltra, though the verifiable results of such experiments remain classified. These explorations extended into the realm of what might be called psychological warfare engineering attempts to develop techniques that could rapidly break down resistance in interrogation subjects or even entire populations. One subproject examined how stress, sleep deprivation, and isolation could be combined to induce what researchers called artificial neurosis, essentially manufactured mental breakdowns that would render subjects compliant. Another investigated how radio broadcasts and other media could implant subliminal messages to influence mass behavior, and early exploration of what we might now call information warfare. By the early 1960 seconds, MKUltra had expanded into more than 150 subprojects, involving dozens of institutions, universities, hospitals, and front organizations. The program had moved far beyond its original focus on counteracting Soviet mind control techniques. It had become a sprawling exploration of how human consciousness could be manipulated, redirected, and controlled. Its tentacles reached into respected institutions across America and Canada, often operating behind multiple layers of cover stories and compartmentalized knowledge, with many researchers unaware of the ultimate purpose of their work or its connection to intelligence activities. The program's scope extended beyond psychological techniques to include technological approaches as well. One subproject investigated the possibility of remote mind control through electromagnetic fields. Another explored the potential of microwave technology to transmit sounds directly into a person's auditory cortex effectively, planting voices in the head that only the target could hear. While many of these technological approaches proved impractical with the equipment available in the 1950s and early 1960s, they reflected the program's ambition and its willingness to explore even the most speculative avenues for controlling human behavior. MKUltra also maintained a keen interest in emerging neurosurgical techniques, particularly those involving electrical stimulation of the brain. The work of Dr. Jos Delgado, who had demonstrated the ability to control animal behavior through implanted electrodes, caught the attention of program administrators. Delgado's famous demonstration in which he stopped a charging ball by remote control through an electrode implanted in its brain suggested possibilities for direct physical control of human subjects that aligned perfectly with MKUltra's objectives. While the evidence for human experimentation in this area remains limited, declassified documents suggest at least preliminary exploration of how such techniques might be applied to human targets. Yet for all its technological sophistication and scientific trappings, MKUltra remained fundamentally flawed in its conception of human psychology. The mind proved far more resilient, complex, and unpredictable than its researchers had anticipated. The dream of creating perfectly controllable human subjects remained elusive, even as the ethical and human costs of pursuing that dream continued to mount. Internal assessments increasingly acknowledged the limitations of the approach, though these concerns were often buried beneath bureaucratic momentum and the sunk cost fallacy that keeps many government programs running long after their utility has been questioned. Perhaps the most disturbing aspect of MKUltra's architecture of control was how it normalized the view of human beings as manipulable objects rather than autonomous moral agents. The program's fundamental premise that people could and should be reduced to programmable systems represented a profound ethical failure that transcended even the specific harms inflicted on individual subjects. This mechanistic view of humanity would continue to influence American intelligence approaches for decades, creating a legacy that extended far beyond the program's official lifespan. As the political winds began to shift in the mid-1960s, and as questions about intelligence overreach began to surface, MKUltra would face increasing scrutiny. But by then, its techniques and methodologies had already spread far beyond the confines of the program itself, influencing military interrogation protocols, law enforcement techniques, and even the emerging counterculture, in ways that would continue to reverberate through American society for decades to come. The architecture of control that Gottlieb and his colleagues had constructed would prove more durable than the program itself, embedding itself in institutions and practices that would long outlive MKUltra's official termination. By the mid-1960s, MKUltra had grown into a sprawling, multifaceted program with tendrils reaching into countless institutions across America and beyond. Yet even as Gottlieb and his team continued their relentless pursuit of mind control techniques, they faced an unexpected development. The very substances and methods they had been experimenting with in secret were beginning to leak into the broader culture, triggering a social transformation that would ultimately prove impossible to contain or control. This phenomenon represented perhaps the most profound irony of the entire Cold War-era classified program designed to protect American values inadvertently, catalyzing a cultural revolution that would challenge those very values at their foundation. The first signs of this cultural leakage appeared in academic and artistic circles. Several prominent researchers who had received CIA funding began to develop misgivings about their work and the ethical implications of their research. Some, like psychologist Timothy Leary at Harvard, made dramatic pivots, transforming from establishment researchers into countercultural icons who actively promoted the use of psychedelics for personal transformation and spiritual growth. Leary's journey from respected academic to psychedelic evangelist exemplified this unexpected trajectory. Initially hired to conduct personality research at Harvard, Leary became fascinated with psilocybin and LSD, eventually establishing the Harvard Psilocybin Project with Richard Alpert, later known as Ram Dass. Their research, which began with structured scientific protocols, gradually evolved into more experimental approaches that alarmed university administrators and eventually led to their dismissal in 1963. "Turn on, tune in, drop out," Leary famously proclaimed, encouraging a generation of young Americans to experiment with the very substances the CIA had been studying in secret. What had begun as a classified intelligence program was now fueling a youth movement that openly challenged authority and conventional thinking. The irony was not lost on some within the intelligence community, who watched with growing alarm as their carefully guarded research tools became symbols of cultural rebellion. One internal memo from 1966 noted with evident frustration, "The subjects of our research have become its advocates. The experimental has become experiential. Control mechanisms have become liberation technologies. The unintended dissemination went beyond." Philosophical shifts. Through various channels, researchers who diverted supplies, subjects who shared their experiences, and the CIA's own front operations that sometimes lost control of their materials, LSD and other psychedelics, began flowing into underground networks. The very structure of MK Ultra, with its compartmentalized knowledge and multiple layers of contractors and subcontractors, created numerous points where materials could be diverted or information could leak. Dr. Sidney Cohen, who had conducted LSD research partially funded through CIA channels, later reflected, "None of us realized that these substances would escape the laboratory and find their way into the streets. We thought we were conducting controlled experiments, but the controls proved inadequate to the power of what we were studying." By 1965, an estimated 1 million Americans had tried LSD, most of them young people with no connection to government research. Underground chemists like Augustus Owsley Stanley III began producing high-quality LSD in significant quantities, making it widely available throughout youth communities. Owsley, who had become the chief supplier for the Grateful Dead and a legendary figure in counterculture history, produced an estimated 5 million doses between 1965 and 1967 alone, far more than had ever been manufactured for research purposes. The proliferation happened with remarkable speed, transforming what had been an obscure psychiatric research chemical into a cornerstone of youth culture in less than a decade. In San Francisco's Haight-Ashbury district, Berkeley's campus community, and New York's Greenwich Village, psychedelic use became intertwined with a growing counterculture that questioned the very foundations of American society, including the Cold War paradigm that had given birth to MK Ultra in the first place. The substances that had been developed to enhance control were now fueling a movement dedicated to resisting control in all its forms. This cultural inversion represented a spectacular backfire for the program's original intentions. As one former MK Ultra researcher who had defected to the counterculture observed, they wanted to find a way to make people more susceptible to authority, but instead they found a way to make people question all authority. Ken Kesey, who had been a volunteer test subject in MK Ultra-linked experiments at the Menlo Park Veterans Hospital, went on to write One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and organize the famous acid tests public LSD parties that helped spread psychedelic culture throughout California. They were looking for a way to control people's minds, Kesey later reflected, but what they found was a way for people to free their minds. That's not what they wanted at all. Kesey's personal transformation from experimental subject to cultural revolutionary epitomized the unintended consequences of MK Ultra's research. His novel, with its powerful critique of institutional psychiatry and authority, would become required reading for a generation questioning the very power structures that had created MK Ultra. The acid tests represented a particularly dramatic reversal of MK Ultra's methodologies. Where the CIA had conducted clandestine experiments in controlled settings with unwitting subjects, Kesey and his merry pranksters created open participatory events where LSD was knowingly consumed in environments designed to maximize sensory stimulation rather than deprivation. Their psychedelic school bus further, painted in day-glow colors and equipped with sound systems and light shows, traveled across America in 1964, spreading a new cultural ethos that was diametrically opposed to the conformity and control that MK Ultra had sought to enhance. This cultural transformation extended beyond drug use into broader questions about consciousness, authority, and the nature of reality itself. The psychedelic experience, with its dissolution of normal boundaries and hierarchies, proved fundamentally incompatible with the rigid control structures of the Cold War era. Young people who had experienced these consciousness-altering states became more likely to question war, consumerism, environmental destruction, and social inequality. The substances that had been investigated for their potential to make people more malleable instead made them more questioning, more skeptical of received wisdom, and more resistant to propaganda, precisely the opposite of what MK Ultra's architects had intended. The influence extended into music, art, literature, and fashion, creating new aesthetic forms that celebrated expanded consciousness and challenged conventional perception. Bands like the Grateful Dead, Jefferson Airplane, and the Beatles incorporated psychedelic themes and experiences into their music, reaching millions of young listeners. Artists like Peter Max and Victor Moscoso created visual works that attempted to capture the psychedelic experience, developing new styles characterized by vibrant colors, fluid forms, and complex patterns. Even fashion transformed, with bright colors, natural materials, and non-Western influences replacing the grey flannel conformity of the 1950s. For the architects of MKUltra, this represented a catastrophic backfire. Not only had their mind control techniques failed to produce reliable results in controlled settings, but the tools they had refined were now fueling a social movement that actively undermined the national security apparatus. The genie was out of the bottle, and no amount of classification or secrecy could put it back. As one CIA analyst reportedly commented in a closed-door meeting, "We set out to control the mind, and instead we've lost control of the culture." The spiritual dimensions of psychedelic experience proved particularly problematic for MKUltra's materialist paradigm. Many users reported profound mystical experiences that transformed their worldviews and value systems. Eastern philosophical and religious concepts began entering Western consciousness, challenging the dualistic, consumption-oriented thinking that had dominated American culture. Researchers like Walter Pahnke at Harvard demonstrated in his famous Good Friday experiment that psilocybin could reliably induce mystical experiences indistinguishable from those reported by religious mystics throughout history experiences, characterized by a sense of unity, transcendence of time and space, and a deep sense of meaning that often led to lasting positive changes in personality and behavior. By 1967, the Summer of Love had brought international attention to the psychedelic counterculture, with tens of thousands of young people flocking to San Francisco to participate in a social experiment that owed its existence, at least in part, to MKUltra's research. Media coverage of these events began to raise questions about where all these drugs had come from and who had initially developed, then questions that threatened to lead back to the CIA's secret programs. The Haight-Ashbury district became a laboratory for new forms of community organization, economic exchange, and social interaction, a kind of mirror image of MKUltra's secretive experiments, conducted openly and voluntarily by its participants. Inside the agency, concerns were mounting. A 1968 internal review noted with alarm that substances developed for targeted application in controlled intelligence operations have become widely available for recreational use, with significant implications for domestic stability and social control. The report recommended immediate steps to distance the agency from psychedelic research and suppress any connections between government programs and the emerging drug culture. This marked a significant shift in strategy from developing these substances to actively working to contain their social impact. This led to Operation Chaos, a domestic surveillance program targeting anti-war activists, student groups, and countercultural communities, many of which had been influenced by the very substances MKUltra had helped introduce into American society. The intelligence community was now in the bizarre position of monitoring and attempting to neutralize a social movement that their own secret programs had inadvertently helped create. This operation, which would later be revealed as one of the most extensive domestic surveillance programs in American history, represented yet another layer of irony in the MKUltra cigar. The same agency that had explored mind control techniques was now using more conventional surveillance methods to monitor those influenced by those techniques. The legislative response followed quickly. In 1966, California became the first state to ban LSD, with federal prohibition following in 1968. Research permits were revoked, funding dried up, and legitimate scientific investigation of psychedelics ground to a halt, creating a research blackout that would last for decades. This prohibition, while framed in terms of public health and safety, also served to obscure the government's role in developing and testing these substances. By criminalizing psychedelics, authorities could more easily dismiss the countercultural movement as simply drug-induced delusion, rather than a legitimate critique of American society and values. Meanwhile, the therapeutic potential of psychedelics, which had been a secondary interest for MKUltra researchers, focused primarily on control applications, was beginning to attract serious attention from independent researchers and mental health professionals. Early studies suggested promising results for treating alcoholism, anxiety, depression, and trauma applications that had been largely overlooked in the CIA's single-minded pursuit of mind control techniques. The Czechoslovakian psychiatrist Stanislav Grof who had conducted extensive research with LSD before emigrating to the United States, developed psychedelic therapy protocols that showed remarkable success rates for treating alcoholism and neurosis. His work, along with that of other researchers like Walter Pahnke and James Fadiman, suggested that these substances might have significant healing potential when used in appropriate therapeutic contexts. The suppression of this research represented yet another unintended consequence of MKUltra's legacy. Promising treatments for mental health conditions were abandoned, not because they lacked efficacy, but because of their association with counterculture movements and covert intelligence operations. It would take nearly half a century before mainstream research into the therapeutic applications of psychedelics would resume in earnest, with contemporary studies at institutions like Johns Hopkins, NYU, and Imperial College London now confirming what those early researchers had begun to discover. The cultural impact extended beyond the immediate counterculture movement. Silicon Valley's technological revolution was significantly influenced by psychedelic experiences, with figures like Steve Jobs openly acknowledging the importance of LSD in shaping their creative vision. Taking LSD was a profound experience, one of the most important things in my life, Jobs stated in a biography. The computer revolution, with its emphasis on personal empowerment, decentralization, and intuitive interfaces, bore the unmistakable imprint of psychedelic thinking, yet another domain where MKUltra's research had unintended transformative effects far beyond its original purposes. By the late 1960s, as political scrutiny of intelligence activities intensified and the counterculture continued to grow, MKUltra faced increasing pressure from multiple directions. The program that had begun with such cold certainty about the malleability of human consciousness had instead demonstrated something quite different, that consciousness, once expanded, tends to resist rather than submit to external control. The tools developed to enhance American security had instead contributed to a profound questioning of the very systems and values they were meant to protect. The final irony came in the program's termination and the attempted destruction of its records. In 1973, as investigations into intelligence activities gained momentum, CIA Director Richard Helms ordered the destruction of all MKUltra records. This attempt to erase history itself reflected the program's fundamental philosophy that reality could be manipulated, that truth was malleable, that the past could be rewritten. Yet just as the program's substances had escaped containment, so too did its history. Enough documents survived, thanks to accounting records and misfiled materials, to eventually bring much of MKUltra's activities to light. As the 1970s dawned and revelations about intelligence overreach began to emerge through the Church Committee investigations and Freedom of Information requests, the ultimate fate of MKUltra would be sealed not just by political oversight and changing priorities, but by the fundamental contradiction at its core. The program had sought dominance over the human mind, but had instead unleashed forces of cultural change that would transform American society in ways its creators could never have anticipated or desired. In this sense, MKUltra succeeded in changing American consciousness, just not in the way its architects had intended. In the spring of 1975, a sense of unease permeated the upper echelons of the CIA. The Watergate scandal had already toppled a presidency and unleashed an unprecedented wave of scrutiny aimed at government operations across the board. As the nation grappled with the implications of political corruption at the highest levels, a series of investigative reports in the New York Times by journalist Seymour Hersh revealed the existence of a massive program of domestic surveillance and covert operations by the CIA, explicit violation of the agency's charter, and a breach of the public's trust. The political climate had shifted dramatically, and the era of unquestioned intelligence authority was coming to an alarming and abrupt end. On January 27, 1975, the United States Senate established the Select Committee to study governmental operations with respect to intelligence activities, chaired by Senator Frank Church of Idaho. This committee, which would later be known as the Church Committee, represented the most comprehensive investigation of American intelligence activities in history. Its mandate extended far beyond the initial revelations about domestic surveillance, encompassing assassination plots, covert operations and most relevant to our narrative experiments involving unwitting human subjects that had been carried out under the auspices of MKUltra. The Committee's investigators faced a formidable challenge. In 1973, anticipating future scrutiny, CIA Director Richard Helms had ordered the destruction of all MKUltra files. Make sure there's nothing left, he reportedly instructed Sidney Gottlieb as the latter prepared to retire from government service. Gottlieb dutifully destroyed over 150 boxes of documents, seemingly erasing 2 decades of research and experimentation from the historical record. This act of institutional amnesia might have succeeded completely were it not for a clerical error of historic proportions and oversight that would ultimately facilitate the exposure of the CIS's darkest secrets. In 1977, a Freedom of Information Act request led to the discovery of approximately 20,000 pages of MKUltra financial records and some research materials that had been incorrectly filed in a financial records building. These documents, while representing only a fraction of the program's total output, provided enough information to begin reconstructing the scope and nature of MKUltra's activities. They revealed a program far more extensive and troubling than anyone outside the agency had imagined, showcasing a tapestry of unethical experimentation and a cavalier attitude toward human subjects. The Church Committee hearings brought the outlines of MKUltra into public view for the first time. On August 3, 1977, Admiral Stansfield Turner, then CIA Director, testified about the program before the Senate. His careful, measured testimony acknowledged the existence of drug testing on unwitting subjects but attempted to frame these activities as discontinued aberrations rather than core intelligence methodologies. Behind the scenes, however, the CIA was scrambling to contain the damage, reaching out to former researchers and subjects with warnings and, in some cases, offers of financial compensation in exchange for silence. The media response was immediate and explosive. CIA reveals drug tests on unwitting subjects, read the Washington Post headline, while mind control tests shocked CIA Director, proclaimed the New York Times. For the American public, already reeling from Watergate and the Vietnam War, these revelations further eroded trust in government institutions. The image of intelligence agencies secretly drugging American citizens seemed to confirm the darkest suspicions of government overreach and contempt for civil liberties. The public outrage was palpable as citizens began to question not only the actions of the CIA, but the entire framework of authority that had allowed such abuses to occur. For the victims of MKUltra and their families, the revelations brought a complex mixture of vindication and renewed trauma. Many had spent years questioning their experiences, sometimes doubting their own memories or sanity. The public acknowledgement that these experiments had indeed taken place offered validation, but also reopened deep-seated wounds. Some, like the family of Frank Olson, began to question the circumstances surrounding events that had previously been explained away as accidents or personal breakdowns. Olson, an army scientist working closely with the CIA on chemical warfare and interrogation techniques, had died in 1953 after falling from a New York hotel window. His death had been ruled a suicide, with his family told that he had suffered a sudden psychiatric break. The Church Committee revelations led Olson's family to press for more information, eventually learning that he had been unwittingly dosed with LSD by Sidney Gottlieb just days before his death. This disclosure led to a formal apology from President Gerald Ford and a financial settlement, but left unanswered questions about whether Olson's death was truly a suicide, or something far more sinister, questions that continue to linger in public discourse to this day. Similar stories emerged across the country as former subjects or their relatives connected personal experiences to the newly revealed program. In 1979, a man named James Thornwell filed a lawsuit against the US government, claiming he had been drugged with LSD and subjected to harsh interrogation techniques as part of a military investigation in 1961 when he was stationed in France. The government eventually settled the case for $625,000, acknowledging that Thornwell had been the subject of a chemical interrogation program that had caused lasting psychological damage. This settlement, while a small victory, highlighted the difficulty many victims faced in obtaining justice. Legal recourse proved elusive for countless others, as they struggled to navigate a complex legal system that often prioritized governmental immunity over individual rights. The Supreme Court's 1987 decision in United States v. Stanley severely limited the ability of military personnel to sue the government for injuries arising from secret experimentation, leaving many feeling abandoned by the very institutions meant to protect them. James Stanley, an Army serviceman who had been secretly given LSD at Fort Detrick in 1958, had his case dismissed despite clear evidence of government wrongdoing. Justice Antonin Scalia, writing for the majority, cited the need to maintain military discipline and effectiveness, effectively placing national security concerns above individual rights, a legal rationale that echoed the very thinking that had enabled MKUltra in the first place. For Canadian victims of Dr. Ewan Cameron's experiments at McGill University, justice was similarly difficult to obtain. Though Cameron's work had been substantially funded through CIA-front organizations, establishing legal liability proved challenging. After years of litigation, 9 former patients reached a settlement with the CIA in 1988, receiving payments of $750,000 to be divided among them, a pittance compared to the lifetime of suffering many had endured. The Canadian government, which had also funded Cameron's work, eventually established a compensation program for victims in 1992, acknowledging its role in supporting unethical research. However, many victims felt that the compensation was insufficient to address the long-term psychological and emotional scars inflicted upon them. Beyond the legal battles and compensation claims, a deeper reckoning was taking place within American institutions. The revelations about MKUltra and other intelligence overreaches led to significant reforms in how human experimentation was conducted and overseen. In 1974, Congress passed the National Research Act, creating the National Commission for the Protection of Human Subjects of Biomedical and Behavioral Research. This commission developed the Belmont Report, which established 3 fundamental ethical principles for human research: respect for persons, beneficence, and justice. These principles were subsequently incorporated into federal regulations governing human subject research, creating a framework of institutional review boards and informed consent requirements that remains in place today. The changes made in response to MKUltra would ensure that future research would prioritize ethical considerations and safeguard the rights of participants, addressing the failures of the past. Within the intelligence community, reforms were also implemented. Executive Order 12,036, signed by President Jimmy Carter in 1970-8, explicitly prohibited experimentation on human subjects without their informed consent. This was followed by Executive Order 112,333 under President Reagan, which further codified restrictions on human experimentation. These orders, along with internal CIA regulations, created a more robust framework of oversight and accountability, at least on paper. Whether these formal restrictions have been consistently followed in practice, particularly in the context of post-9/11 interrogation programs, remains a subject of debate and concern among civil rights advocates and legal scholars. The scientific legacy of MKUltra is complex and contradictory. On one hand, the program's methodological and ethical failures represent a cautionary tale about the dangers of placing national security imperatives above scientific integrity and human rights. The research conducted under MKUltra frequently violated basic principles of scientific method. Proper controls were often absent, documentation was inconsistent or deliberately obscured, and results were interpreted through the lens of pre-existing assumptions rather than objective analysis. These methodological flaws, combined with the program's secrecy, meant that much of the research produced little of scientific value. On the other hand, some aspects of MKUltra's research did advance understanding in certain areas, albeit in ways unintended by the program's architects. The extensive work with psychedelics, while failing to produce reliable mind control techniques, generated observations about consciousness and perception that would later inform legitimate research in psychology and neuroscience. The intersections of psychological and physiological effects of LSD, for example, led to insights into how the brain functions and processes information, contributing to the burgeoning fields of cognitive psychology and neuropharmacology. Similarly, studies of sensory deprivation and its effects while conducted for manipulative purposes, contributed to understanding how the brain processes sensory information and how perception is constructed knowledge that has applications ranging from treating perceptual disorders to developing more effective meditation techniques. These scientific insights, albeit overshadowed by the unethical practices of the past, have been influential in shaping more ethical and humane approaches to psychological research. Perhaps the most significant scientific impact came in the field of ethics itself. MKUltra now serves as a paradigmatic case study in bioethics courses worldwide, illustrating the fundamental importance of informed consent, transparency, and respect for human autonomy in research. The program's abuses have helped shape contemporary research ethics, serving as a powerful example of what happens when these principles are abandoned in pursuit of national security or scientific advancement. The ethical failings of MKUltra become a touchstone for discussions about the limits of scientific inquiry and the responsibility of researchers to protect their subjects, influencing generations of scientists and ethicists. The cultural legacy of MKUltra extends far beyond its direct impacts on victims and institutions. As details of the program entered public consciousness, they became integrated into popular culture, conspiracy theories, and political discourse. Films like The Manchurian Candidate, both the 1962 original and 2004 remake, Jacob S. Ladder, 1990, and the Bourne Identity series drew inspiration from MKUltra's mind control ambitions. Television shows from The X-Files to Stranger Things have incorporated elements of secret government mind control experiments into their narratives. These fictional treatments, while often exaggerating or distorting the historical reality, have kept public awareness of the program alive and contributed to ongoing skepticism about government secrecy and the integrity of intelligence operations. For conspiracy theorists, MKUltra offered confirmation that the government was indeed engaged in sinister hidden activities against its own citizens. The program has become a cornerstone of numerous conspiracy narratives, some grounded in documented facts and others extending far beyond the available evidence. The difficulty in separating MKUltra fact from fiction is compounded by the deliberate destruction of records and the compartmentalized nature of the original program, which means that even those directly involved often knew only pieces of the larger operation. This has created a fertile ground for speculation and paranoia, allowing conspiracy theories to flourish in the absence of comprehensive transparency. In political discourse, MKUltra has been invoked by both the political left and right as evidence of government overreach and the dangers of unchecked power. For civil libertarians, the program exemplifies why robust oversight of intelligence activities is essential. For anti-government activists, it represents proof that the state cannot be trusted with power. The program's legacy thus continues to shape how Americans view their government and its capacity for both protection and harm. The lessons of MKUltra have contributed to calls for increased accountability, transparency, and ethical standards across all levels of government, particularly in the realm of intelligence and military operations. As we approach the present day, the shadow of MKUltra continues to influence contemporary debates about intelligence activities, scientific ethics, and the balance between national security and civil liberties. The post-9/11 era has seen renewed controversies over interrogation techniques, surveillance programs, and the appropriate limits of state power in confronting threats. While these current issues differ in significant ways from MKUltra, they raise similar fundamental questions about what methods a democratic society can employ in its own defense without compromising the values it seeks to protect. The debates surrounding torture, extraordinary rendition, and the surveillance state echo the ethical dilemmas faced by the architects of MKUltra, underscoring the need for vigilance in protecting civil liberties even in times of crisis. The full extent of MKUltra may never be known. Too many records have been destroyed, too many participants have died, and too many aspects of the program were never documented in the first place. What remains is a partial picture, disturbing in what it reveals and perhaps more disturbing in what remains hidden. Yet even this incomplete accounting offers vital lessons about the fragility of ethical constraints in times of perceived crisis. the corrupting influence of secrecy on both science and governance, and the unpredictable consequences that can flow from attempts to control the human mind. As former MKUltra researcher Dr. Sidney Cohen reflected years after leaving the program, we were so busy thinking about whether we could, we never stopped to think about whether we should. This simple statement perhaps best captures the fundamental failure at the heart of MKUltra failure, not just of ethics or oversight, but of wisdom and foresight. In seeking to defend American values against external threats, the program's architects lost sight of those very values, creating a legacy that continues to haunt American institutions, culture, and the collective memory of a nation grappling with the consequences of its own actions. The reckoning with MKUltra is ongoing, a reminder of the need for constant vigilance, ethical integrity, and respect for human dignity in all pursuits of knowledge and security. As we step into the 21st century, the legacy of MKUltra continues to cast a long and pervasive shadow over contemporary society, permeating discussions about ethics, personal autonomy, and the role of government in the lives of its citizens. While the explicit practices and methodologies of MKUltra may belong to a bygone era, the fundamental questions it raised about power, control, and the human experience remain ever relevant. In an age marked by rapid technological advancements and the complexities of a globalized world, the echoes of MKUltra reverberate in various spheres, from psychology and neuroscience to politics and civil rights, challenging us to reflect on the implications of our past as we navigate the future. One of the most striking developments in recent years has been the resurgence of interest in psychedelics, the very substances that played a central role in the MKUltra program. The 21st century has witnessed a renaissance in psychedelic research, driven by a renewed understanding of the therapeutic potential of these compounds. Studies have explored their efficacy in treating a range of mental health conditions, including depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, and addiction. Institutions such as Johns Hopkins University, New York University, NYU, and Imperial College London have embarked on groundbreaking research, demonstrating that psychedelics can lead to profound psychological healing and personal transformation when used responsibly and ethically. This modern resurgence stands in stark contrast to the clandestine and coercive approaches of MKUltra. Today, researchers are guided by stringent ethical standards, regulatory oversight, and an unwavering commitment to the well-being of participants. The shift from secretive experimentation to open, carefully controlled studies reflects a broader societal recognition of the importance of ethics in research, a lesson learned from the dark history of MKUltra. As more evidence emerges regarding the therapeutic benefits of psychedelics, public perception is shifting, and discussions about decriminalization and therapeutic applications are gaining traction across diverse communities, including mental health advocates, lawmakers, and the general public. The therapeutic community is increasingly advocating for a re-evaluation of how society views psychedelics. Prominent figures like Michael Pollan, whose book How to Change Your Mind chronicles the resurgence of psychedelic therapy, have contributed to a growing public discourse that challenges the stigma surrounding these substances. Pollan's exploration of personal experiences with psychedelics, alongside scientific research, highlights the potential for these compounds to facilitate deep psychological healing and enhance creativity, self-awareness, and emotional resilience. This transformation showcases a remarkable pivot from the past, emphasizing how a careful and ethical approach to research can yield transformative insights into the human experience and foster a greater understanding of consciousness. Self. Moreover, the resurgence of interest in psychedelics is accompanied by a growing recognition of the need for integration and support following psychedelic experiences. Many researchers and practitioners advocate for comprehensive integration programs that help individuals process their experiences and apply insights gained during their journeys to their everyday lives. This focus on holistic support underscores a commitment to ethical practices and the recognition that psychedelics are not merely tools for therapeutic intervention, but catalysts for personal growth and exploration. While MKUltra's specific practices may have been curtailed, the the broader issues of surveillance, control, and the erosion of civil liberties continue to pervade contemporary society. The post-9/11 landscape has seen an expansion of government surveillance programs that some critics argue mirror the clandestine activities of MKUltra in their disregard for individual rights and freedoms. The revelations of whistleblowers like Edward Snowden in 2013 brought to light the extent of mass surveillance conducted by the NSA and other intelligence agencies, raising critical questions about privacy, consent, and the balance between security and liberty in an increasingly complex world. Just as MKUltra operated under a veil of secrecy, contemporary surveillance initiatives often lack transparency and oversight, leading many to draw parallels between the two eras. The justifications for these programs national security, counterterrorism, and public safety echo. The rhetoric used to justify MKUltra's experiments on unwitting subjects, with advancements in technology enabling unprecedented levels of data collection and analysis, the potential for abuse remains a pressing concern. The lessons of MKUltra serve as a cautionary tale, underscoring the need for vigilance in protecting civil liberties and ensuring accountability within intelligence and law enforcement agencies. Furthermore, the rise of social media and digital platforms has further complicated the landscape of privacy and surveillance. Users willingly share vast amounts of personal information online, often without fully understanding the implications of their digital footprints. This behavior raises ethical questions about consent and the commodification of personal data, echoing the themes of manipulation and control that characterized MKUltra. As individuals navigate a world where their choices and behaviors are increasingly monitored and influenced by algorithms, the need for informed consent and autonomy becomes paramount. Consequently, the discourse surrounding digital rights and privacy is gaining momentum, with advocates calling for stronger protections against surveillance and data exploitation. Grassroots movements and non-profit organizations are working tirelessly to raise awareness about the importance of digital privacy, urging individuals to take control of their personal information and understand their rights in the digital age. These efforts resonate with the historical context of MKUltra, reminding us of the importance of safeguarding individual freedoms in the face of encroaching governmental and corporate power. The legacy of MKUltra also extends into the realm of psychological manipulation and the dissemination of information. In an age characterized by the proliferation of misinformation and fake news, the tactics used during MKUltra manipulation, deception, and psychological coercion find resonance in contemporary political discourse and media landscapes. The rise of social media has facilitated the rapid spread of disinformation campaigns, often targeting vulnerable populations to sway public opinion or incite division. These tactics can evoke the very strategies employed by MKUltra researchers who sought to influence behavior through covert means. The ethical implications are profound, raising concerns about the manipulation of public perception and the erosion of democratic processes. As society grapples with the consequences of misinformation, the historical context of MKUltra serves as a reminder of the potential for abuse when power is wielded without accountability. In response to these challenges, movements advocating for media literacy and critical thinking have emerged, aiming to equip individuals with the tools needed to discern fact from fiction. Educational initiatives are being implemented in schools and communities to promote critical engagement with media, encouraging individuals to develop analytical skills that enable them to navigate the complex information landscape of the digital age. These efforts reflect a broader societal recognition of the importance of informed citizenship in safeguarding democracy and individual autonomy principles that were undermined during the dark days of MKUltra. Moreover, the rise of fact-checking organizations and independent journalism has become essential in countering the spread of misinformation. These entities strive to provide accurate information and hold powerful actors accountable, echoing the principles of transparency and integrity that are vital for a healthy democracy. The ongoing dialogue about the impact of misinformation on society underscores the urgency of promoting ethical communication and responsible media consumption, as these elements are critical to preserving the democratic ideals that underpin American society. As we reflect on the legacy of MKUltra, the quest for accountability and transparency remains a central theme. The exposure of the program and the subsequent investigations highlighted the need for oversight in intelligence operations and research practices. In many ways, the Church Committee S revelation served as a catalyst for reforms aimed at preventing the recurrence of such abuses. Yet, decades later, the challenge of ensuring accountability persists, particularly as new technologies and methodologies continue to evolve. Calls for greater transparency within intelligence agencies and government operations continue to resonate, especially in light of recent controversies surrounding surveillance and military operations. Activist organizations and advocacy groups are at the forefront of these efforts, demanding more robust checks on government power and the protection of civil liberties. The legacy of MKUltra serves as a poignant reminder that vigilance is essential in maintaining a balance between security and individual rights. Moreover, the ongoing dialogue about the ethical implications of scientific research underscores the importance of learning from the past. The establishment of institutional review boards and ethical guidelines for research has become a standard practice, yet the potential for ethical lapses remains. As new technologies and methodologies emerge, society must remain proactive in ensuring that ethical considerations are prioritized in all facets of research and experimentation. In recent years, the emergence of new bioethical dilemmas, particularly surrounding genetic engineering, artificial intelligence, and neurotechnology, underscores the relevance of the lessons learned from MKUltra. As scientists and researchers explore uncharted territories in these fields, the need for ethical frameworks that prioritize human dignity and autonomy becomes increasingly critical. The experiences of MKUltra serve as a cautionary tale, reminding us that the pursuit of knowledge must always be tempered with ethical considerations and a commitment to protecting individual rights. As we move further into the 21st century, it is imperative that we continue to engage in dialogue and reflection about the lessons of MKUltra. The historical narrative is not merely a cautionary tale. It is a living reminder of the complexities of human behavior, the intricacies of power dynamics, and the ethical imperatives that guide our actions. The legacy of MKUltra invites us to confront uncomfortable truths about the capacity for institutions to operate in secrecy and the potential consequences of unchecked authority. Educational initiatives that promote awareness of historical events like MKUltra can foster a more informed citizenry, encouraging critical thinking and ethical consideration in both scientific research and government operations. By integrating these discussions into educational curricula and public discourse, we can ensure that future generations are equipped to navigate the ethical dilemmas they may encounter. Programs emphasizing the importance of accountability, transparency, and the protection of civil liberties can help cultivate a culture of ethical consciousness that resonates throughout society. The legacy of MKUltra serves as a mirror reflecting the ongoing struggles for autonomy, integrity, and ethical governance in contemporary society. As we confront the complexities of the modern world marked by rapid technological advancement, shifting political landscapes, and evolving social norms, let us remember the lessons of the past. The need for ethical vigilance, transparency, and accountability remains as vital today as it was during the turbulent era of MKUltra. In honoring this legacy, we can work toward a future that prioritizes individual rights, respects human dignity, and fosters a culture of ethical inquiry and integrity. Thus, the story of MKUltra is far from over. Instead, it continues to unfold in the collective consciousness of society, urging us to reflect on the past as we shape the future. The shadows of history may loom large, but they also illuminate the path toward a more ethical and just society that learns from its mistakes and strives to protect the rights and dignity of every individual. In this ongoing journey, the legacy of MKUltra serves not only as a reminder of the potential for abuse, but also as a call to action, a commitment to uphold the principles of justice, transparency, and respect for humanity as we navigate the complexities of an ever-changing world. Moreover, it challenges us to engage in a continuous dialogue about power, ethics, and the human experience, ensuring that the lessons learned from the past inform our choices and actions in the present and future. As the 21st century marches on, The profound legacy of MKUltra continues to evoke discussions not only about ethical governance and civil liberties, but also about the intricate processes of reconciliation and healing. For those impacted by the program, the ramifications of MKUltra's experiments have left deep psychological scars on its unwitting subjects and their families, and the journey toward healing is complex, multifaceted, and often fraught with challenges. This chapter explores the various avenues of reconciliation, the tireless efforts of activists and advocates, and the ongoing dialogue regarding the moral responsibilities of society to those who suffered as a result of these covert operations. Reconciliation begins with acknowledgement. The first step toward healing for many victims of MKUltra has been the recognition of their experiences and the injustices they endured. Over the years, various governmental and institutional bodies have taken steps to acknowledge the wrongs committed under the guise of national security. In 1995, the CIA released a report detailing its own past activities, explicitly recognizing the ethical violations inherent in MKUltra. This report was a significant milestone, as it represented a formal acknowledgement from the agency that had orchestrated the abuses, marking a crucial turning point in the narrative surrounding the program. In 2004, then CIA Director George Tenet publicly apologized for the agency's role in unethical human experimentation. This apology, while somewhat symbolic, was crucial in validating the experiences of victims and their families who had long sought recognition for the suffering they endured. Such public acknowledgements play an essential role in the healing process, as they provide victims with a sense of validation and recognition that their pain was real and that their stories matter. The act of acknowledgement itself can be profoundly therapeutic, allowing survivors to feel seen and heard in a society that often marginalized their experiences. Moreover, the importance of apologies extends beyond individual acknowledgement. They serve as foundational elements for societal healing. Apologies can help to foster a sense of trust and restore faith in institutions that have historically betrayed that trust. For victims of MKUltra, these gestures of acknowledgement are not merely formalities. They represent a crucial step toward rebuilding relationships between the government and the citizenry. The act of apologizing can create pathways to dialogue, fostering a climate where victims feel empowered to share their stories and engage in discussions about the future of ethical governance. While public apologies are vital, they often need to be accompanied by concrete actions, including legal restitution and compensation. Many victims of MKUltra have sought justice through the courts, aiming to hold the government accountable for the psychological and emotional damage inflicted upon them. Legal battles have been lengthy, arduous, and often emotionally draining, exacerbated by the challenges of proving harm and the complexities of navigating governmental immunity. In the 1980s and 1990s, a series of lawsuits were filed by former subjects of MKUltra, many of whom experienced severe psychological trauma as a result of the experiments conducted on them. Some individuals received financial settlements, while others were left grappling with a sense of injustice and frustration at the lack of accountability. Notably, in 1980, a group of former MKUltra participants, including victims of Dr. Ewan Cameron's experiments, successfully sued the Canadian government for its complicity in the unethical practices. They received compensation, but many felt it fell short of addressing the profound impact the experiments had on their lives. Legal avenues for restitution remain open, but they are fraught with challenges. The complexities of proving long-term psychological damage, coupled with the difficulty of navigating legal frameworks designed to protect government entities, present significant barriers to justice for many victims. The ongoing fight for compensation highlights the need for systemic changes in how society addresses historical injustices and supports those who have suffered. This struggle for justice is not merely about financial compensation, it symbolizes a broader quest for acknowledgement, validation, and the recognition of the inherent dignity of every individual. In addition to legal battles, advocacy and grassroots activism have played a crucial role in amplifying the voices of MKUltra victims and advocating for systemic change. Organizations dedicated to civil liberties, mental health, and ethical research have emerged, working tirelessly to raise awareness about the legacy of MKUltra and to push for reforms in research ethics and government accountability. These organizations often serve as lifelines for victims, providing them with resources, support, and a platform to share their stories. Activists have sought to create platforms for survivors to share their experiences, fostering a sense of community and solidarity among those who have experienced similar traumas. These platforms often serve as spaces for healing, where survivors can connect with one another, share their experiences, and collectively advocate for acknowledgement and justice. Through storytelling and public testimony, victims of MKUltra have found strength in their shared experiences, transforming their pain into a collective call for change. This sense of community can be immensely empowering, allowing individuals to reclaim their narratives and assert their agency after years of being silenced. The activism surrounding MKUltra has also highlighted broader issues of ethics in research and the importance of informed consent. Many advocates emphasize the need for regulatory reforms that prioritize the rights and well-being of research participants, ensuring that history does not repeat itself. The work of these activists serves as a reminder that the fight for justice and ethical governance is ongoing, and that vigilance is necessary to protect individual rights. In the face of potential abuses, healing from the trauma of MKUltra is a deeply personal journey, and for many survivors, therapy and support systems have been instrumental in their recovery. Mental health professionals have increasingly recognized the lasting impact of trauma and the need for specialized approaches to address the unique challenges faced by those who experienced unethical experimentation. The psychological scars left by MKUltra are not merely individual in nature. They can ripple through families and communities, creating a broader impact that necessitates a comprehensive approach to healing. Therapeutic approaches that focus on trauma-informed care have gained prominence, emphasizing the importance of understanding the effects of trauma on mental health and well-being. Survivors of MKUltra may benefit from a range of therapeutic modalities, including cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, EMDR, and somatic experiencing, all of which aim to help individuals process their experiences and regain a sense of agency and control over their lives. Each survivor's journey is unique, requiring tailored approaches that acknowledge their specific experiences and the complexities of their trauma. Support groups and community resources have also emerged as vital components of the healing process. By creating spaces for survivors to connect, share their experiences, and receive validation, these resources foster a sense of belonging and understanding that can be profoundly healing. Many survivors have found solace in knowing they are not alone in their struggles and that their experiences are recognized and validated by others who have walked similar paths. The power of shared experiences cannot be underestimated. It can catalyze healing and empower individuals to confront their pasts with resilience and courage. Moreover, the integration of holistic approaches to healing, such as mindfulness, meditation, and yoga, has gained traction among survivors seeking to reconnect with their bodies and minds. These practices can help individuals cultivate a sense of peace and resilience, providing tools for navigating the complexities of trauma recovery. Mindfulness, in particular, has been shown to be effective in helping trauma survivors manage anxiety and emotional distress, fostering a greater sense of present moment awareness and acceptance. As society grapples with the legacy of MKUltra, education and awareness are paramount. Understanding the historical context of MKUltra and its implications for ethics, governance, and individual rights is essential for preventing future abuses. Educational initiatives that promote awareness of historical events like MKUltra can foster a more informed citizenry, encouraging critical thinking and ethical consideration in both scientific research and government operations. Incorporating the lessons learned from MKUltra into educational curricula ranging from high school social studies to university ethics courses can help ensure that future generations are equipped to navigate the ethical dilemmas they may encounter. By instilling a sense of moral responsibility and ethical consciousness, we can cultivate a culture that values individual rights and prioritizes the well-being of all members of society. This proactive approach to education can empower individuals to become advocates for justice and ethical governance, reinforcing the importance of transparency and accountability in all aspects of societal functioning. Public awareness campaigns and community discussions can also serve to illuminate the ongoing challenges faced by survivors of MKUltra, and the importance of advocating for ethical governance. These initiatives can help break down the stigma surrounding mental health issues and encourage open dialogues about trauma, healing, and the need for accountability. By fostering an environment where these conversations can take place, society can move closer to acknowledging the past and working toward a more just future. The journey toward reconciliation and healing for MKUltra victims is multifaceted and ongoing. As society confronts the legacy of these unethical experiments, it is essential to recognize the importance of acknowledgement, legal restitution, advocacy, and mental health support in the healing process. The stories of survivors serve as powerful reminders of the human capacity for resilience and the necessity of addressing historical injustices with compassion and integrity. In embracing a path forward, we must remain vigilant in our commitment to ethical governance, individual rights, and the protection of vulnerable populations. By learning from the past, advocating for systemic change, and fostering a culture of accountability and support, we can work toward a future that honors the dignity of every individual and seeks to prevent the recurrence of such abuses. The legacy of MKUltra, while marked by pain and suffering, ultimately provides us with a profound opportunity to reflect on the complexities of power, ethics, and humanity, urging us to ensure that the lessons learned guide our actions as we navigate the challenges of the present and future. In recognizing the importance of healing and reconciliation, we affirm our collective responsibility to honor the experiences of those who suffered under MKUltra and to actively engage in the ongoing quest for justice, dignity, and ethical integrity in all aspects of society. As we move forward, let us carry the lessons of the past with us, allowing them to inform our actions and decisions as we strive to build a more just, compassionate, and ethical world for all. It is through this collective commitment to healing and accountability that we can hope to create a society that not only remembers its past, but also endeavors to create a better future for generations to come. The experiences of MKUltra remind us that the struggle for justice is ongoing, and we must remain dedicated to fostering a culture of respect, dignity, and ethical consideration for all individuals. Through this lens, we can honor the legacy of those who suffered, while simultaneously creating a pathway toward a more ethical and just society, ensuring that the lessons of history resonate deeply within our collective consciousness and inform our actions as we strive to protect the rights and dignity of every individual. As society continues to grapple with the historical ramifications of MKUltra, the ethical landscape of research has undergone significant scrutiny and reform. The dark legacy of MKUltra serves as a critical case study in the importance of ethical standards, informed consent, and the protection of human subjects in research. This chapter delves into the evolution of research ethics, the establishment of regulatory frameworks, and the ongoing challenges that researchers face in balancing scientific inquiry with ethical considerations. The roots of modern research ethics can be traced back to the aftermath of World War II, particularly in response to the atrocities committed during the Holocaust. The Nuremberg trials highlighted the need for ethical guidelines in human experimentation, leading to the formulation of the Nuremberg Code in 1947. This code established fundamental principles for conducting research involving human subjects, emphasizing the necessity of voluntary consent, the right to withdraw, and the importance of minimizing harm. Despite these early efforts, the abuses of MKUltra revealed significant gaps in ethical oversight and regulation. The program's covert nature and the lack of accountability allowed for egregious violations of human rights, prompting a re-evaluation of ethical standards in research. The revelations surrounding MKUltra catalyzed public outrage and a demand for more robust protections for research participants, ultimately leading to significant reforms in the ethical landscape of research. In the wake of the MKUltra revelations and other unethical research practices, the US government established the National Commission for the Protection of Human Subjects of Biomedical and Behavioral Research in 1974. This commission was tasked with developing guidelines to protect human subjects in research, resulting in the publication of the Belmont Report in 1979. The Belmont Report outlined 3 core ethical principles that would come to shape modern research ethics: respect for persons, beneficence, and justice. Respect for persons. This principle emphasizes the importance of obtaining informed consent from research participants, acknowledging their autonomy and right to make decisions about their involvement in research. It underscores the necessity of providing individuals with sufficient information about the research, including potential risks and benefits, to enable them to make informed choices. This aspect of respect also involves treating participants with dignity and recognizing their rights to privacy and confidentiality throughout the research process. Beneficence. This principle mandates that researchers maximize potential benefits while minimizing risks and harm to participants. It reflects the ethical obligation to prioritize the well-being of individuals involved in research and to conduct studies that contribute positively to society. This includes not only physical safety, but also psychological and emotional well-being, ensuring that participants are not subjected to undue stress or trauma as a result of their involvement in research studies. Justice. This principle calls for a fair distribution of the benefits and burdens of research, ensuring that vulnerable populations are not exploited and that all individuals have equitable access to participation in research. It highlights the importance of considering the social and ethical implications of research practices. Justice demands that researchers actively seek to include diverse populations in their studies, while ensuring that no single group bears a disproportionate share of the risks involved. These principles have become the foundation for ethical research practices and are reflected in the regulations governing research involving human subjects in the United States and many other countries. The Belmont Report and the establishment of institutional review boards, IRBs, to review research proposals have significantly strengthened the ethical oversight of research, ensuring that the rights and welfare of participants are prioritized. One of the most significant developments in the evolution of research ethics has been the establishment of institutional review boards, IRBs. These independent committees are responsible for reviewing research proposals to ensure that they comply with ethical standards and regulations. IRBs assess the potential risks and benefits of research studies, evaluate the informed consent process, and determine whether the proposed research is ethically sound. The requirement for IRB review has become a cornerstone of ethical research practices. By providing an additional layer of oversight, IRBs help to safeguard the rights and welfare of participants, ensuring that research is conducted responsibly and ethically. Researchers must submit their proposals to an IRB for approval before commencing their studies, creating a system of checks and balances that promotes ethical accountability. However, the effectiveness of IRBs is not without challenges. Critics argue that IRBs can sometimes become overly bureaucratic, leading to delays in the approval process and hindering important research. Additionally, there are concerns about the consistency and rigor of IRB reviews, as the quality of oversight can vary significantly between institutions. These challenges highlight the need for ongoing dialogue and reform to ensure that ethical oversight remains effective without stifling scientific inquiry. Furthermore, there is an ongoing debate regarding the composition of IRBs. Many argue that IRBs should include diverse members with expertise in various fields, including ethics, law, medicine, and community representation. This diversity can enhance the deliberative process, enabling IRBs to consider a wider range of perspectives and ethical concerns. The inclusion of community representatives can also help ensure that the voices of those who may be impacted by research are heard, fostering trust and transparency in the research process. Central to the ethical landscape of research is the concept of informed consent. This process entails providing potential participants with comprehensive information about the study, including its purpose, procedures, risks, benefits, and their rights as participants. Informed consent is not merely a formality, it is an ethical imperative that acknowledges the autonomy and dignity of individuals involved in research. The lessons learned from MKUltra underscore the critical importance of informed consent. The program's reliance on deception and coercion violated the fundamental principles of autonomy and respect for persons, leading to profound ethical violations. In response, researchers are now required to ensure that participants fully understand what participation entails and that they are free to make voluntary decisions without coercion or undue influence. Informed consent processes have evolved over time to become more participant-centered. Researchers are encouraged to engage in open dialogue with potential participants, addressing any questions or concerns they may have. This approach fosters trust and transparency, reinforcing the ethical commitment to prioritize the well-being of individuals involved in research. Importantly, informed consent is an ongoing process that extends beyond the initial agreement. Participants should be kept informed of any significant changes to the research that may affect their willingness to continue participation. Moreover, the use of plain language and accessible materials in the informed consent process is essential to ensure that all participants, regardless of their educational background or literacy level, can comprehend the information provided. Researchers are increasingly encouraged to utilize visual aids, videos, and other innovative methods to enhance understanding and facilitate informed decision-making. Despite the advancements in ethical standards and oversight, challenges remain in the field of research ethics. The rapid pace of technological innovation, especially in fields such as genetics, artificial intelligence, and neuroscience, raises new ethical dilemmas that require careful consideration. The potential for misuse of emerging technologies, coupled with the complexities of informed consent in these contexts, presents significant challenges for researchers and ethical reviewers alike. For instance, the rise of genetic editing. Technologies, such as CRISPR, raises pressing ethical questions about the implications of altering human DNA. Researchers must navigate the delicate balance between scientific advancement and the ethical considerations surrounding potential long-term effects on individuals and future generations. The rapid evolution of technology necessitates ongoing discussions about the ethical implications of new research methodologies and the need for adaptive regulatory frameworks. Additionally, the globalization of research presents its own set of ethical challenges. As research increasingly transcends national borders, ethical standards can vary significantly between countries, leading to potential exploitation of vulnerable populations. Researchers must be vigilant in ensuring that ethical practices are upheld regardless of the geographical context in which they operate. This moral obligation extends to ensuring that participants in low-resource settings are not subjected to exploitation or undue risks simply because they are part of a vulnerable population. To navigate the complexities of research ethics, it is essential to prioritize ethical education and training for researchers. Educational programs that emphasize the principles of research ethics, informed consent, and the responsibilities of researchers are crucial in fostering a culture of ethical inquiry. By instilling a strong ethical foundation in future researchers, we can promote a commitment to responsible and ethical conduct in all aspects of research. Ethical education should not be limited to formal training programs. It should also be integrated into the broader culture of research institutions. Open discussions about ethical dilemmas, case studies, and real-world scenarios can help researchers develop the critical thinking skills necessary to navigate ethical challenges. Encouraging a culture of ethical reflection and dialogue can empower researchers to make informed decisions that prioritize the rights and welfare of participants. Moreover, institutions should promote ongoing professional development opportunities focused on research ethics. Workshops, seminars, and conferences can provide researchers with the tools and knowledge needed to remain current with evolving ethical standards and best practices. This commitment to continuous education not only enhances the ethical competence of researchers, but also fosters a culture of accountability and transparency within research institutions. The legacy of MKUltra serves as a powerful reminder of the importance of ethical standards in research. As we navigate the complexities of modern research practices, it is imperative to remain vigilant in our commitment to ethical governance, informed consent, and the protection of human subjects. The lessons learned from MKUltra have shaped the evolution of research ethics, leading to significant reforms that prioritize the rights and welfare of participants. By fostering a culture of ethical inquiry, accountability, and transparency, we can ensure that the mistakes of the past are not repeated. The ongoing challenges in research ethics demand our attention and engagement. as we strive to balance scientific advancement with ethical responsibility. As we move forward, let us carry the lessons of history with us, recognizing that ethical research is not only a moral obligation but also a foundation for building trust between researchers and the communities they serve. In embracing a commitment to ethical research, we affirm our collective responsibility to honor the dignity of every individual and to safeguard the rights of those who contribute to the advancement of knowledge. By doing so, we can create a research landscape that is not only innovative and impactful, but also grounded in the principles of respect, integrity, and compassion for all. Ultimately, our dedication to ethical research will define the legacy we leave for future generations, shaping a future where the pursuit of knowledge is harmonized with a commitment to humanity and ethical integrity. Through continuous reflection on the past, engagement with the present ethical challenges, and a forward-looking commitment to best practices, we can ensure that the research community remains vigilant and responsive. This proactive stance not only honors the memories of those affected by unethical research practices like MKUltra, but also serves as a beacon of hope for a future where ethical considerations are at the forefront of scientific inquiry. Together, we can build a research landscape marked by trust, respect, and a shared commitment to advancing knowledge while safeguarding the rights and dignity of all individuals involved. The legacy of MKUltra extends far beyond the confines of government secrecy and ethical violations, permeating various facets of society and leaving an indelible mark on cultural narratives. Its impact reverberates through literary works, film, television, and even music, shaping the collective memory of a generation and influencing societal attitudes towards authority, autonomy, and the potential for abuse in the name of national security. This chapter explores how MKUltra has influenced popular culture, media representations, and public discourse, as well as its ongoing relevance in contemporary discussions about ethics, mental health, and the intersection of science and society. The revelations surrounding MKUltra have permeated various aspects of popular culture, from literature and film to television and music. The program's themes of mind control, psychological manipulation, and government conspiracy have inspired countless works that reflect societal anxieties about authority, autonomy, and the potential for abuse in the name of national security. In literature, numerous authors have drawn upon the themes of MKUltra to explore the darker aspects of human psychology and the ethical dilemmas inherent in scientific experimentation. Novels, such as The Manchurian Candidate by Richard Condon and The Mind Manipulators by Donald Bain, delve into the implications of mind control and the loss of personal agency. These works are not only designed to entertain, but also to provoke critical questions about the moral responsibilities of those in positions of power and the ethical implications of psychological experimentation. Film adaptations of these themes have further contributed to the cultural narrative surrounding MKUltra. Movies like The Manchurian Candidate, both the original 1962 version and the 2004 remake, along with films such as the Bourne Identity series, portray protagonists grappling with the consequences of psychological manipulation and government-sponsored experimentation. The cinematic portrayal of these themes taps into a collective fear of losing one's identity and autonomy, reflecting broader societal anxieties about the potential for governmental overreach and the ethical implications of scientific advancements. Moreover, films like A Beautiful Mind and The Imitation Game illustrate the struggles of brilliant individuals whose lives have been shaped by societal pressures and the ethical dilemmas surrounding their treatment in the name of national security and scientific progress. These narratives resonate with audiences, often providing a reflection of their own fears about the encroachment of authority into personal lives and the moral implications of sacrificing individual rights for perceived greater goods. Television series have also explored the legacy of MKUltra, often blending elements of science fiction and psychological thriller genres. Shows like Stranger Things have incorporated references to MKUltra, weaving fictional narratives around the concept of government-sponsored mind control experiments. These portrayals resonate with audiences, tapping into a cultural fascination with conspiracy theories and the mysterious workings of government agencies. The show's portrayal of a secretive government lab conducting unethical experiments on children serves as a metaphor for the real-life abuses that occurred during MK Ultra, drawing parallels that provoke thought and discussion among viewers. Moreover, documentaries and docuseries, such as Wormwood, delve into the historical facts of MK Ultra, blending real footage with dramatized reenactments to present a compelling narrative. These productions not only educate viewers about the program's history, but also highlight the personal stories of those affected, humanizing the abstract concepts of experimentation and trauma by presenting the lived experiences of individuals who were victims of MK Ultra. These documentaries serve as powerful reminders of the real human costs of unethical research practices and the importance of accountability in government actions. The influence of MK Ultra extends to the realm of music and art as well. Various musicians have referenced the program in their lyrics, using it as a metaphor for manipulation and control. Bands like The Doors and artists such as David Bowie have explored themes of psychological exploration and the darker sides of human nature, often drawing inspiration from the cultural climate shaped by MK Ultra. Songs that touch on themes of alienation, loss of identity, and the struggle against oppressive systems resonate deeply with audiences, reflecting societal fears and concerns about mental health and government authority. In visual arts, contemporary artists have used the legacy of MK Ultra to critique authority and challenge societal norms. Installations and exhibitions that address psychological experimentation and the ethics of scientific inquiry often invoke the history of MK Ultra as a cautionary tale, urging viewers to consider the implications of unchecked power and the importance of ethical standards in research. Artists may incorporate multimedia elements such as video, audio, and interactive components to engage viewers in a dialogue about the ethical implications of scientific exploration and the potential consequences of dehumanizing research practices. The cultural imprint of MK Ultra has also shaped public discourse surrounding mental health, ethics, and government accountability. As awareness of the program has grown, so too has the demand for transparency and accountability in research practices. Public discussions about MK Ultra have led to a broader examination of the ethics of experimentation, particularly regarding vulnerable populations. This dialogue is essential in ensuring that lessons from the past inform current and future practices in research and governance. The legacy of MK Ultra has contributed to a heightened awareness of mental health issues and the importance of ethical considerations in psychological research. Survivors of MK Ultra and their families have become advocates for mental health awareness, emphasizing the need to address the long-term effects of trauma and the importance of ethical treatment in mental health practices. Their stories bring to light the need for trauma-informed care and the importance of recognizing the psychological impact of unethical research practices. This advocacy has played a crucial role in reshaping public perceptions of mental health, moving away from stigmatization and towards a more compassionate understanding of the complexities of trauma and recovery. The stories of MK Ultra victims serve as powerful reminders of the potential consequences of unethical practices in the field of psychology and psychiatry, reinforcing the need for ethical standards that prioritize the well-being of individuals. Furthermore, these narratives have sparked broader conversations about mental health resources, access to care, and the importance of societal support for individuals grappling with the effects of trauma. The revelations of MK Ultra have fueled ongoing debates about government accountability and transparency. As public awareness of the program has grown, so too has the demand for greater oversight of government actions, particularly regarding issues of national security and ethical governance. The program's history serves as a cautionary tale, highlighting the dangers of unchecked power and the potential for abuses under the guise of national interest. Calls for transparency have led to increased scrutiny of government agencies and their practices, with citizens demanding accountability for past actions. The legacy of MK Ultra has inspired a generation of activists and advocates committed to safeguarding civil liberties and ensuring that ethical standards are upheld in all aspects of government operations. This activism has taken many forms, from grassroots movements calling for legislative reform to public campaigns aimed at educating citizens about their rights and the importance of holding government accountable for its actions. MK Ultra's legacy also raises important questions about the relationship between science and society. As scientific advancements continue to progress, concerns about ethical implications and potential abuses remain at the forefront of public discourse. The program serves as a stark reminder of the responsibilities that come with scientific inquiry and the need for ethical frameworks that prioritize the rights and dignity of individuals. The ethical lessons learned from MKUltra are particularly relevant in contemporary discussions about emerging technologies such as genetic, editing, artificial intelligence, and neuroscience. As researchers explore new frontiers in these fields, the potential for ethical violations looms large. The importance of informed consent, transparency, and accountability remains paramount as society grapples with the implications of scientific advancements on individual autonomy and well-being. Public engagement in discussions about the ethical implications of research is essential. By fostering an informed citizenry, we can ensure that ethical considerations are integrated into the scientific process, promoting a culture of accountability that safeguards against potential abuses. This engagement also encourages researchers to take an active role in addressing societal concerns and prioritizing the public good in their work. The collaborative dialogue between scientists, ethicists, policymakers, and the public is crucial in shaping a research environment that is both innovative and responsible. Ultimately, the legacy of MKUltra serves as a powerful cultural reflection of societal values and anxieties. As we navigate the complexities of contemporary research practices and societal challenges, it is essential to remain vigilant in our commitment to ethical governance and the protection of individual rights. The ongoing dialogue surrounding MKUltra highlights the need for continued reflection on the ethical implications of scientific inquiry and the responsibilities that come with the pursuit of knowledge. As we move forward, it is crucial to honor the experiences of those affected by MKUltra and to integrate their stories into our collective understanding of ethics in research. By acknowledging the past and learning from it, we can strive to create a future where ethical standards are upheld, individual rights are protected, and the pursuit of knowledge is harmonized with a commitment to humanity and social responsibility. This commitment to honoring the past is not merely an act of remembrance, it is a call to action that demands our engagement and dedication to creating a more just and equitable society. The legacy of MKUltra is multifaceted, encompassing cultural, societal, and ethical dimensions that continue to shape our understanding of research and its implications. By engaging with the narratives and lessons derived from this dark chapter in history, we can foster a culture of ethical inquiry that prioritizes the dignity and rights of individuals. In honoring the legacy of MKUltra, we must remain committed to transparency, accountability, and ethical governance in all aspects of research and societal functioning. As we reflect on the past and its lessons, we can work towards a future that values ethical considerations, safeguards against abuses of power, and promotes the well-being of all individuals. Through this commitment, we can ensure that the stories of those affected by MKUltra are not forgotten, but serve as a guiding light for future generations, reminding us of the importance of ethical integrity in the pursuit of knowledge and the protection of human rights. As we continue to confront the challenges posed by advances in science and technology, let us strive to create an environment in which ethical considerations are paramount, where the rights of individuals are respected, and where the lessons of history inform our actions. By doing so, we honor the legacy of those who suffered and ensure that their experiences propel us toward a future characterized by ethical vigilance, compassion, and a steadfast commitment to justice. The journey toward ethical integrity in research is ongoing, and it is a collective responsibility that requires our unwavering dedication to fostering a society that values human dignity above all else. As we arrive at the conclusion of this exploration into the legacy of MKUltra and its profound implications for research ethics, it is essential to reflect on the lessons learned and to consider the future directions that ethical research must take. This chapter synthesizes the insights gained from previous discussions, highlights ongoing challenges, and proposes a framework for fostering responsible and ethical research practices in an increasingly complex scientific landscape. The legacy of MKUltra has shaped the ethical landscape of research in several critical ways. First and foremost, it has underscored the necessity of informed consent as a foundational principle in research practices. The egregious violations of human rights that occurred during MKUltra serve as a chilling reminder of what can happen when ethical standards are disregarded. The repercussions of these violations have led to a societal demand for greater transparency, accountability, and ethical governance in research. Informed consent remains a cornerstone of ethical research, emphasizing the importance of participant autonomy and the right to make informed decisions regarding their participation. The lessons learned from MKUltra highlight the need for researchers to prioritize clear communication, ensuring that participants fully understand the risks and benefits associated with their involvement. Moreover, ongoing dialogue and engagement with participants can foster a sense of trust, allowing for a more ethical and respectful research environment. This increased emphasis on informed consent has also led to the development of more robust consent processes that are adaptable to the needs of diverse populations. Researchers are now encouraged to utilize various methods of obtaining consent, including verbal consent, visual aids, and simplified language, to ensure that all participants, regardless of their background, can comprehend the information necessary to make informed choices. This evolution in consent practices reflects a broader commitment to inclusivity and respect for individual dignity. The establishment of institutional review boards, IRBs, has been instrumental in enhancing the ethical oversight of research. These independent committees play a vital role in reviewing research proposals, assessing potential risks, and ensuring compliance with ethical standards. However, as we have discussed, the effectiveness of IRBs can vary, and there is an ongoing need for reform to ensure that they are equipped to handle the complexities of modern research. This includes promoting diversity within IRBs to reflect a broader range of perspectives and experiences, which can enrich the ethical review process. Furthermore, the composition of IRBs is essential in ensuring that they can adequately represent the interests of various stakeholders, including vulnerable populations. By including members from diverse backgrounds such as ethicists, community representatives, and individuals with lived experience, IRBs can better appreciate the nuances of research proposals and the broader societal implications of the studies they evaluate. This diversity can enhance the deliberative process, leading to more comprehensive and ethically sound decisions. As we move further into the 21st century, the landscape of research is evolving rapidly, presenting new ethical challenges that require thoughtful consideration. Advances in technology, particularly in fields such as genetics, artificial intelligence, and data science, raise profound ethical questions about privacy, consent, and the potential for misuse. Researchers must remain vigilant and proactive in addressing these challenges to uphold the ethical principles established in response to past abuses. Emerging technologies have the potential to revolutionize research and improve human health, but they also pose significant ethical dilemmas. For instance, genetic editing technologies like CRISPR raise questions about the implications of altering human DNA. As research in this area progresses, it is imperative to engage in robust ethical discussions that consider the potential long-term effects on individuals and future generations. Establishing clear ethical guidelines and frameworks for the use of such technologies is essential to prevent the repetition of past mistakes. Additionally, the rise of artificial intelligence in research presents its own set of ethical dilemmas. Issues surrounding data privacy, bias in algorithms, and the potential for automation to replace human judgment necessitate careful scrutiny. Researchers must prioritize transparency in their methodologies and ensure that AI tools are used responsibly and ethically, with a focus on enhancing human welfare rather than compromising it. Ongoing training and education in ethical AI practices are critical to equipping researchers with the skills necessary to navigate these challenges effectively. As research increasingly transcends national borders, the globalization of research presents unique ethical challenges. Ethical standards can vary significantly between countries, raising concerns about the potential exploitation of vulnerable populations. Researchers engaged in international studies must navigate these complexities with sensitivity and a commitment to upholding ethical standards regardless of the geographical context. This includes fostering partnerships with local communities, respecting cultural differences, and ensuring that research benefits those involved. Moreover, it is essential to consider how different cultural perspectives on ethics can inform research practices. Engaging with local communities not only enhances the ethical integrity of research, but also encourages collaboration and mutual respect. Researchers should prioritize building relationships with stakeholders to understand their values and concerns, which can ultimately lead to more culturally sensitive and ethically sound research practices. To navigate the ethical complexities of modern research, it is crucial to foster a culture of ethical inquiry and responsibility within research institutions. This involves not only adhering to established ethical standards, but also promoting ongoing dialogue, education, and reflection on ethical practices. Ethical education should be an integral part of research training for all involved, from students to seasoned researchers. Institutions must prioritize comprehensive ethical training programs that emphasize the principles of research ethics, informed consent, and the responsibilities of researchers. These programs should encourage critical thinking and ethical reflection, enabling researchers to navigate ethical dilemmas with confidence and integrity. Furthermore, interdisciplinary approaches to ethical training can enrich the educational experience, exposing researchers to diverse perspectives and ethical frameworks. Engaging ethicists, legal scholars, and community representatives in discussions about research ethics can foster a more nuanced understanding of the ethical implications of research practices. Workshops, seminars, and collaborative discussions can provide platforms for researchers to explore ethical challenges and develop strategies for addressing them. Creating an environment that encourages open dialogue about ethical challenges is essential for promoting a culture of ethical research. Research institutions should facilitate discussions about ethical dilemmas, case studies, and real-world scenarios to empower researchers to voice their concerns and seek guidance. This collaborative approach to ethics not only enhances awareness, but also fosters a sense of shared responsibility among researchers to uphold ethical standards. In addition, institutions should create safe spaces where researchers can discuss ethical concerns without fear of repercussions. Encouraging whistleblowing and establishing clear channels for reporting unethical practices are vital components of fostering a culture of accountability. By promoting transparency and open communication, institutions can ensure that ethical considerations are prioritized and that researchers feel empowered to advocate for ethical practices. As we conclude this exploration of the legacy of MKUltra and its implications for research ethics, it is clear that the lessons learned from this dark chapter in history continue to resonate today. The importance of informed consent, transparency, and accountability cannot be overstated, as these principles form the foundation of ethical research practices. Moving forward, researchers must remain committed to upholding ethical standards in the face of emerging challenges. By fostering a culture of ethical inquiry, promoting ethical education, and engaging in open dialogue, we can ensure that the mistakes of the past are not repeated. The legacy of MKUltra serves as a powerful reminder of the potential consequences of unethical research practices and the imperative to prioritize the rights and dignity of individuals involved in research. In embracing the future, let us strive to create a research landscape that values ethical integrity, respects the autonomy of individuals, and prioritizes the well-being of all. By doing so, we can honor the experiences of those affected by MKUltra and ensure that their stories inform our collective commitment to ethical research practices. The journey toward ethical integrity in research is ongoing and requires the active participation of all stakeholders, including researchers, educators, policymakers, and the public. As we continue to confront the challenges posed by advances in science and technology, let us strive to create an environment in which ethical considerations are paramount, where the rights of individuals are respected, and where the lessons of history inform our actions. By doing so, we honor the legacy of those who suffered and ensure that their experiences propel us toward a future characterized by ethical vigilance, compassion, and a steadfast commitment to justice. The commitment to ethical research is not merely a professional responsibility, it is a moral obligation that requires unwavering dedication to fostering a society that values human dignity above all else. As we continue our examination of research ethics in the wake of MKUltra's legacy, it becomes increasingly clear that the future of ethical research depends not only on institutional reforms and regulatory frameworks, but also on meaningful collaboration and community engagement. This chapter explores the critical importance of building bridges between researchers, communities, policymakers, and other stakeholders to create a research ecosystem that is truly ethical, inclusive, and responsive to societal needs. One of the most significant lessons from the MKUltra era is the danger of conducting research in isolation from the communities it affects. The victims of MKUltra were often marginalized individuals who had little voice in the research process and no ability to advocate for their rights. Moving forward, it is essential that research practices embrace community engagement. As a fundamental principle, ensuring that those who are most affected by research have a meaningful role in shaping its direction and implementation. Participatory research models represent a paradigm shift in how research is conducted, moving away from a top-down approach where researchers act as sole decision-makers to a collaborative model where community members are active partners in the research process. These models recognize that communities possess valuable knowledge, perspectives, and expertise that can enhance the quality and ethical integrity of research. Community-based participatory research, CBPR, is one such approach that emphasizes collaboration between researchers and community members throughout all phases of the research process, from identifying research questions to disseminating findings. This approach ensures that research is relevant to community needs, respects community values, and produces results that can be translated into meaningful action. By involving community members as co-researchers, CBPR fosters a sense of ownership and empowerment, while also ensuring that research is conducted in a culturally sensitive and ethically responsible manner. Trust is the foundation of any successful research partnership, and building trust requires sustained engagement, transparency, and accountability. For communities that have historically been exploited or marginalized by research, as indigenous populations, people of color, and economically disadvantaged groups, establishing trust can be particularly challenging. Researchers must approach these communities with humility, recognizing past harms and demonstrating a genuine commitment to ethical practices. Building trust involves more than simply obtaining informed consent. It requires ongoing dialogue, active listening, and a willingness to adapt research practices based on community feedback. Researchers should invest time in understanding the cultural contexts, values, and priorities of the communities they work with, and should be prepared to share power and decision-making authority. This collaborative approach not only enhances the ethical integrity of research, but also leads to more robust and meaningful findings that can truly benefit the communities involved. The complex ethical challenges facing modern research cannot be adequately addressed by any single discipline. Effective responses require interdisciplinary collaboration that brings together diverse perspectives, expertise, and methodologies. By fostering collaboration across disciplines, we can develop more comprehensive and nuanced approaches to research ethics that account for the multifaceted nature of ethical dilemmas. The relationship between science and ethics has not always been harmonious, with some researchers viewing ethical considerations as obstacles to scientific progress. However, the legacy of MKUltra demonstrates that scientific advancement without ethical grounding can lead to devastating consequences. Moving forward, it is essential to bridge the gap between scientific inquiry and ethical reflection, recognizing that these two domains are complementary rather than contradictory. Ethicists can provide valuable insights into the moral implications of research practices, helping researchers to identify potential ethical pitfalls and develop strategies for addressing them. Conversely, scientists can help ethicists understand the practical constraints and opportunities associated with different research methodologies, ensuring that ethical guidelines are realistic and implementable. By fostering dialogue between these disciplines, we can create a research environment where ethical considerations are integrated into every stage of the scientific process. Legal and policy experts play a crucial role in shaping the regulatory frameworks that govern research practices. Their expertise is essential in translating ethical principles into enforceable regulations, and in ensuring that legal protections for research participants are robust and comprehensive. Collaboration between researchers, ethicists, and legal experts can lead to the development of policies that are both ethically sound and practically feasible. Moreover, legal scholars can help identify gaps in existing regulations and advocate for reforms that address emerging ethical challenges. As new technologies and research methodologies continue to evolve, legal frameworks must adapt to ensure that they provide adequate protection for research participants while also supporting innovation and scientific progress. This requires ongoing dialogue and collaboration between all stakeholders to ensure that regulations remain relevant and effective. Social scientists bring unique perspectives to discussions of research ethics, particularly in understanding the social, cultural, and psychological dimensions of research participation. Their expertise can help researchers appreciate the broader social contexts in which research takes place and the potential impacts of research on individuals and communities. By incorporating insights from sociology, anthropology, psychology, and related fields, researchers can develop more holistic and culturally sensitive approaches to ethical research. Social scientists can also contribute to the evaluation of research ethics by studying the effectiveness of different ethical frameworks and practices. Through empirical research on topics such as informed consent processes, community engagement strategies, and the functioning of IRBs, social scientists can provide evidence-based recommendations for improving research ethics practices. The role of government in shaping research ethics cannot be understated. Policymakers have the authority to establish regulations, allocate funding, and create incentives that promote ethical research practices. Engaging policymakers in discussions about research ethics is essential for ensuring that ethical considerations are reflected in national and international research policies. Advocacy efforts aimed at promoting ethical legislation can help ensure that the lessons learned from MKUltra and other ethical failures are translated into meaningful policy reforms. Researchers, ethicists, and community advocates can work together to lobby for stronger protections for research participants, greater transparency in research practices, and increased accountability for ethical violations. This advocacy should extend beyond national borders, as many ethical challenges in research have global dimensions. International collaboration and the development of global ethical standards can help ensure that all research, regardless of where it is conducted, adheres to fundamental ethical principles. Organizations such as the World Health Organization and UNESCO have played important roles in developing international ethical guidelines, and continued engagement with these bodies is essential for promoting global research ethics. Government funding agencies have significant influence over research practices through their funding decisions. By prioritizing ethical research in funding allocations and requiring rigorous ethical review as a condition of funding, these agencies can create powerful incentives for researchers to prioritize ethics. Additionally, funding agencies can support research on ethics itself, including studies on informed consent, community engagement, and the effectiveness of different ethical oversight mechanisms. Governments can also create recognition programs and awards that celebrate ethical excellence in research, highlighting exemplary practices and encouraging others to follow suit. By making ethical conduct a valued and rewarded aspect of research, policymakers can help foster a culture where ethics is seen not as a burden, but as an integral part of scientific excellence. Creating a more ethical research landscape requires not only changes within research institutions, but also broader public awareness and engagement. An informed public is better equipped to advocate for their rights, participate meaningfully in research, and hold researchers and institutions accountable for ethical conduct. Public education initiatives can help demystify the research process and empower individuals to make informed decisions about research participation. These initiatives might include public forums, educational materials, media campaigns, and community workshops that explain research ethics principles, participant rights, and the mechanisms for reporting ethical concerns. Schools and universities can play a role in promoting research ethics literacy by incorporating ethics education into science curricula at all levels. By exposing students to ethical principles and case studies early in their education, we can cultivate a generation of researchers and citizens who are deeply committed to ethical practices. The media plays a powerful role in shaping public perceptions of research ethics. Investigative journalism can bring attention to ethical violations and hold institutions accountable, while documentaries and narrative storytelling can humanize the experiences of research participants and illustrate the real-world impacts of ethical and unethical practices. The stories of MK Ultra survivors, when told with sensitivity and respect, serve as powerful educational tools that can help the public understand the importance of research ethics. By amplifying these voices and ensuring that the lessons of history are not forgotten, media can contribute to a culture of ethical awareness and accountability. Research ethics is not confined to any single nation or culture. As research becomes increasingly globalized, it is essential to consider diverse cultural perspectives on ethics and to develop frameworks that are respectful of cultural differences while upholding universal human rights principles. Different cultures may have varying perspectives on issues such as individual autonomy, community consent, and the balance between individual and collective interests. Developing ethical frameworks that are sensitive to these cultural differences while maintaining core ethical principles is a complex but essential task. This requires genuine dialogue and collaboration with diverse cultural communities, ensuring that ethical guidelines are not simply imposed from Western perspectives, but are truly inclusive and respectful of global diversity. For example, in some indigenous cultures, research decisions may be made collectively by community leaders rather than by individual participants. Ethical frameworks must be flexible enough to accommodate such cultural practices, while still ensuring that individual rights are protected and that no one is coerced into participation. International research collaborations offer tremendous opportunities for scientific advancement, but also present unique ethical challenges. When research involves partnerships between institutions in different countries, particularly between high-income and low-income nations, there is a risk of exploitation if ethical standards are not carefully maintained. Ethical guidelines for international research must address issues such as fair distribution of research benefits, appropriate standards of care, post-research obligations, and the avoidance of ethics dumping the practice of conducting research in countries with less stringent ethical regulations. International collaboration should be based on principles of equity, mutual respect, and shared decision-making, ensuring that all partners benefit from the research and that vulnerable populations are not exploited. As technology continues to evolve, new tools and approaches are emerging that can enhance ethics oversight and make ethical research practices more accessible and effective. Digital platforms can facilitate more effective informed consent processes by providing interactive, multimedia consent materials that are easier for participants to understand. These platforms can also enable ongoing communication between researchers and participants, allowing for continuous consent processes where participants can ask questions, provide feedback, and even withdraw from research more easily. Blockchain technology and other secure digital systems may offer new ways to protect participant privacy and data security while also ensuring transparency and accountability in research practices. These technologies can create permanent, tamper-proof records of consent processes and data handling practices, making it easier to audit research for ethical compliance. Artificial intelligence tools are being developed to assist with ethics review processes, helping IRBs identify potential ethical issues in research proposals more quickly and consistently. While AI should not replace human judgment in ethics review, it can serve as a valuable tool for flagging potential concerns and ensuring that no ethical issues are overlooked. However, the use of AI in ethics oversight must itself be subject to ethical scrutiny, ensuring that these tools do not perpetuate biases or create new ethical problems. The development and implementation of AI tools for ethics oversight should involve diverse stakeholders and should be transparent and accountable. The path forward in research ethics requires a collective commitment from all stakeholders, researchers, institutions, communities, policymakers, and the public. The legacy of MKUltra reminds us of the devastating consequences that can result when ethical principles are abandoned in pursuit of other goals, and it calls us to remain vigilant in our commitment to protecting human dignity and rights. Building bridges between diverse stakeholders, fostering collaboration across disciplines and cultures, engaging communities as partners in research, and leveraging technology to enhance ethical oversight are all essential components of creating a research ecosystem that is truly ethical and responsive to societal needs. As we move forward, let us embrace the challenge of creating research practices that are not only scientifically rigorous, but also ethically exemplary. By working together, learning from the past, and remaining committed to the highest ethical standards, we can ensure that research serves the greater good and honors the dignity and rights of all individuals. The journey toward ethical excellence in research is ongoing, and it requires the active participation, dedication, and moral courage of all who are involved in the scientific enterprise. As we approach the final stages of our exploration into the legacy of MKUltra and the broader implications for research ethics, this chapter focuses on the critical importance of memory, remembrance, and historical preservation. Understanding how we remember and learn from past ethical failures is essential to ensuring that such abuses are never repeated. This chapter examines the role of historical documentation, memorialization, victim advocacy, and institutional accountability in creating a future where ethical principles are not merely abstract ideals, but living practices that guide all research endeavors. Historical memory serves as a vital safeguard against the repetition of past mistakes. The documentation and preservation of events like MKUltra ensure that future generations understand the consequences of ethical failures and remain vigilant in protecting human rights. Without a robust collective memory of these events, there is a risk that the lessons learned will fade, leaving society vulnerable to similar abuses. The preservation of historical records related to MKUltra and similar programs is essential for maintaining transparency and accountability. Government archives, declassified documents, and testimonies from survivors provide invaluable insights into the nature and extent of these programs. Ensuring that these materials are preserved, organized, and made accessible to researchers, educators, and the public is a fundamental responsibility. However, the process of declassification and archival access has often been fraught with challenges. Many documents related to MKUltra were destroyed before the program came to light, and others remain classified or heavily redacted. Advocacy for greater transparency and the continued release of historical documents is essential for ensuring that the full truth of these programs is known and understood. Organizations dedicated to freedom of information and government transparency play a crucial role in pushing for the release of these materials and holding institutions accountable for their historical actions. Museums, educational institutions, and memorial sites serve as important venues for preserving and communicating the history of ethical failures in research. Exhibitions that document the history of MKUltra, the experiences of victims, and the broader context of Cold War-era research practices can educate the public and foster critical reflection on research ethics. Educational institutions from primary schools to universities have a responsibility to incorporate the history of research ethics into their curricula. By teaching students about historical cases like MKUltra, educators can help cultivate an awareness of ethical principles and a commitment to upholding them. Case studies, documentary films, survivor testimonies, and interactive learning experiences can all contribute to a deeper understanding of the importance of ethics in research. At the heart of any discussion about MKUltra must be a recognition of the individuals who suffered as a result of these unethical experiments. Honoring victims and survivors is not only a moral imperative, but also an essential component of healing and reconciliation. Many survivors of MKUltra have spent decades seeking recognition, justice, and compensation for the harms they endured. Victim advocacy organizations play a crucial role in supporting these individuals, providing legal assistance, mental health resources, and platforms for sharing their stories. These organizations also work to ensure that the voices of survivors are heard in policy discussions and that their experiences inform efforts to prevent future abuses. Support for survivors must be comprehensive and long-term, recognizing that the trauma inflicted by unethical research can have lasting effects on mental and physical health. Access to trauma-informed care, counseling services, and community support networks is essential for helping survivors heal and rebuild their lives. Additionally, financial compensation and formal apologies from responsible institutions can provide a measure of justice and acknowledgement of the wrongs committed. Creating memorials and public recognition programs for victims of unethical research serves multiple purposes. It honors the memory of those who suffered, educates the public about historical injustices, and reinforces society's commitment to preventing future abuses. Memorials can take many forms, from physical monuments and plaques to digital archives and annual commemoration events. Public recognition also involves acknowledging the systemic failures that allowed programs like MKUltra to occur. This includes recognizing the roles played by government agencies, research institutions, and individual researchers in perpetrating or enabling these abuses. By confronting these uncomfortable truths, society can begin the process of reconciliation and commit to building more ethical and accountable institutions. One of the most powerful ways to honor victims is to amplify their voices and ensure that their stories are heard. Survivors of MKUltra and other unethical research programs possess unique insights into the human costs of ethical failures, and their testimonies can serve as compelling reminders of why ethical standards matter. Creating platforms for survivors to share their experiences through oral history projects, documentary films, published memoirs, and public speaking opportunities ensures that their perspectives are not marginalized or forgotten. These narratives humanize abstract ethical principles and make the consequences of unethical research tangible and real. When survivors are empowered to tell their own stories, they reclaim agency and contribute to a broader cultural understanding of research ethics. Achieving meaningful change in research ethics requires not only remembering past failures, but also holding institutions accountable and implementing concrete reforms to prevent future abuses. Truth and reconciliation processes offer a framework for addressing historical injustices in a comprehensive and systematic way. These processes typically involve documenting past abuses, providing forums for victims to share their experiences, acknowledging institutional responsibility, and implementing reforms to prevent future violations. While truth and reconciliation commissions have been used primarily in contexts of political violence and human rights abuses, similar approaches could be applied to research ethics. A formal process that brings together survivors, researchers, ethicists, policymakers, and institutional representatives could facilitate honest dialogue about past failures and chart a path forward based on accountability and reform. Such processes must be designed with sensitivity to the needs of survivors, ensuring that participation is voluntary and that adequate support is provided. The goal is not only to document what happened, but also to facilitate healing, promote understanding, and create lasting change in institutional practices and culture. Formal apologies from institutions that conducted or supported unethical research are an important step in acknowledging responsibility and beginning the process of reconciliation. These apologies must be genuine, specific, and accompanied by concrete actions that demonstrate a commitment to change. An effective institutional apology should include acknowledgement of the specific harms caused, recognition of the violation of ethical principles, acceptance of responsibility without qualification or excuse, and a commitment to ensuring that such abuses never happen again. Apologies should be followed by tangible actions such as compensation for victims, implementation of stronger ethical safeguards, and ongoing efforts to educate about past failures. Several institutions have issued apologies for their roles in unethical research practices. For example, various universities and government agencies have acknowledged their involvement in radiation experiments, syphilis studies, and other unethical research. These apologies represent important steps toward accountability, though they must be accompanied by substantive reforms to have lasting impact. Preventing future abuses requires robust oversight mechanisms that can effectively identify and address ethical concerns in research. This includes strengthening IRBs, creating independent ethics oversight bodies, and establishing clear channels for reporting ethical violations. IRBs must be adequately resourced, staffed with diverse and qualified members, and empowered to conduct thorough reviews of research proposals. They should have the authority to halt research that violates ethical standards and to impose consequences for researchers who fail to comply with ethical requirements. Regular training for IRB members and ongoing evaluation of their effectiveness are essential for ensuring that these bodies can fulfill their protective function. Independent ethics oversight bodies, separate from research institutions, can provide an additional layer of accountability. These bodies can investigate complaints, conduct audits of research practices, and make recommendations for policy reforms. By operating independently of the institutions they oversee, these bodies can provide more objective and impartial oversight. Whistleblowers have played a crucial role in exposing unethical research practices throughout history. Protecting and supporting individuals who come forward to report ethical violations is essential for maintaining accountability and preventing abuses. Strong legal protections for whistleblowers are necessary to ensure that individuals can report ethical concerns without fear of retaliation. These protections should extend to researchers, staff members, and research participants who witness or experience ethical violations. Laws and policies must prohibit retaliation against whistleblowers and provide mechanisms for addressing any retaliation that does occur. In addition to legal protections, institutions should create cultures that value ethical reporting and treat whistleblowers with respect rather than suspicion. This requires leadership commitment to ethics, clear reporting procedures, and assurance that reports will be taken seriously and investigated thoroughly. Transparency is a fundamental principle of ethical research and a key mechanism for preventing abuses. When research practices are conducted openly and subject to public scrutiny, there is less opportunity for unethical conduct to occur undetected. Promoting transparency involves multiple strategies, including public registration of research studies, open access to research data and findings, clear communication about research methods and purposes, and regular reporting on research activities. Funding agencies and journals can support transparency by requiring researchers to disclose potential conflicts of interest, share data, and make their findings publicly available. Digital technologies offer new opportunities for enhancing transparency in research. Online databases, open science platforms, and data sharing repositories make it easier to document and share research practices. These tools can facilitate greater accountability and enable more effective oversight of research ethics. Ensuring that future generations of researchers are committed to ethical principles requires comprehensive ethics education that begins early and continues throughout professional development. Ethics education should not be confined to a single course or module, but should be integrated throughout the educational experience. From undergraduate education through graduate training and continuing professional development, researchers should engage with ethical principles and practice applying them to real-world situations. This integration can take many forms, including case-based learning where students analyze historical and contemporary ethical dilemmas, role-playing exercises that allow students to practice ethical decision-making, and mentorship relationships where experienced researchers model ethical conduct and guide students through ethical challenges. Historical cases like MKUltra provide powerful teaching tools for ethics education. By studying these cases in depth, students can understand how ethical failures occur, recognize warning signs of unethical practices, and develop strategies for preventing similar abuses. These case studies should be presented not as distant historical events, but as relevant examples that hold important lessons for contemporary research. Effective ethics education also involves exposing students to diverse perspectives on ethical issues, encouraging critical thinking about ethical principles, and fostering a commitment to placing ethical considerations at the center of research practice. Students should be encouraged to question assumptions, challenge unethical practices, and advocate for the rights and dignity of research participants. The legacy of MKUltra serves as a stark reminder of the capacity for ethical failures when safeguards are absent or ignored. As we reflect on this dark chapter in research history, we must commit ourselves to preserving its memory, honoring those who suffered, and ensuring that such abuses never occur again. This commitment requires action on multiple fronts: preserving historical records and making them accessible, creating spaces for memorialization and education, supporting survivors and amplifying their voices, holding institutions accountable through truth-telling and reform, protecting whistleblowers and promoting transparency, and educating future generations about the importance of research ethics. The ethics of memory demand that we not only remember what happened, but also actively work to prevent its recurrence. This means remaining vigilant against ethical complacency, questioning practices that prioritize other goals over human dignity and rights, and consistently advocating for the strongest possible ethical standards in all research endeavors. As we move forward, let us carry the lessons of MKUltra with us, allowing them to inform our practices, guide our decisions, and strengthen our resolve to conduct research that honors the humanity of all individuals. By doing so, we ensure that the suffering of MKUltra victims was not in vain, but instead serves as a catalyst for creating a more ethical, accountable, and humane research enterprise. The responsibility to remember, to learn, and to act rests with all of us, and it is a responsibility we must embrace with unwavering commitment and moral courage.